Well, good afternoon. Meteorologist Evan Stewart here. We have an update on what's going on with Tropical Storm Erin that is out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You know, we want to try to give you updates here as we go throughout the upcoming week and into the weekend because there could be some impacts here across coastal Virginia and North Carolina into the middle and the end of next week. So a lot of questions as to exactly where Erin will go. You know, the strength of the storm, I think we're pretty confident that it is going to develop into a hurricane later tonight or tomorrow and eventually into a major hurricane as we get into the weekend. Of course, the big question will be exactly how close does Erin get to the U.S., maybe towards Bermuda. So let's talk a little bit more about where Erin is right now. So we take a look at the tropical satellite. Of course, here's the United States. Here's the Greater Antilles, the Lesser Antilles, and of course here is Erin spinning around. And we'll zoom in and give you a little bit of a closer look. And one of the things you might notice here as we've gone through the past few hours is Erin is becoming a little more symmetrical. We're starting to see some of these high wispy clouds, especially coming in off of the south side. That's just an indication that the storm is getting a little better organized, that it has good outflow. It's moving into an area of warmer water. And what does that mean? That means that the storm will likely strengthen, and that's what the forecast is calling for. So we're going to give you the 11 o'clock advisory. Now, as of right now, we get advisories every 6 hours. 11 a.m., 5 p.m., 11 p.m., 5 a.m. Starting in the next couple of days, as the storm gets closer to land, these updates will become a little more frequent. Every 3 hours, we'll have the main advisories at 5 and 11, but then we'll also have intermediate updates at 2 and 8. And usually those intermediate advisories don't include a change to the cone, but it definitely includes an update on the strength of the storm. So this is the 11 o'clock advisory. Came in a few hours ago. And you'll notice it calls for Erin to move off towards the northwest. It's a Category 1 hurricane, eventually becoming a major hurricane as we get here into the day on Sunday. Now here's Puerto Rico. And here's the storm forecast to be north of Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, and north and east of the Bahamas. And right there, that little dot, that is Bermuda. Now the cone, the thing to remember about the cone of uncertainty, as we sometimes call it, or the forecast cone, is it's not showing you where the impacts of the storm will be, but where the expected center of the storm will be. And there's uncertainty. The cone gets wider the farther out you get because margins of error get larger. The farther out you get, it starts fairly compact, and as we get farther and farther out, you know, the center line, that's where these icons are located, but it could very well be on the southern end of this cone, the northern end of this cone. So the big question that's been with Erin, even since almost before it formed, is it going to curve? Is it going to split here between Cape Hatteras over towards Bermuda? And that's the current thinking. I think you can certainly see that turn to the northwest and almost a turn to the north as we get here into Tuesday of next week. But when does that turn occur? Is it a little bit earlier, which would be the right side of this track? And there's some computer models that say it is going to do that, especially if it's a stronger storm. It's more influenced by a big ridge of high pressure that is building in off towards the west out here. And this is sort of what we call a Bermuda high. And so that would sort of cause the storm to turn. We also have an area of high pressure that is out here that is going to be setting up over the United States. And the question really becomes, where is this high located? Is it farther west? Is it farther east? You know, what's the strength of this high? And is the storm going to be able to sort of find a weakness in that ridge and move off towards the north? And is it going to be closer to the U.S. coastline? Is it going to be closer to Bermuda? And that's the big question, really, as we get into the middle part of next week. So this is Tuesday. We would likely start to feel, if it's wave impacts, you know, into Wednesday, even Tuesday, certainly the Outer Banks, southeast coastline will feel some of the waves. But certainly by Wednesday and Thursday would probably place it somewhere, you know, between Hatteras and Bermuda. Again, the big question is, exactly where is that going to be? So let's take a look at the two main forecast models that we use, the American, the GFS, that is there in yellow, and the European, which is in red, showing where Erin is now moves off towards the northwest, as we were expecting there, north of the islands. But notice, as we get into Tuesday, Wednesday, and I've stopped it here at Thursday of next week, this is Thursday morning. Here's Bermuda right in there. It's hard to see that little dot. There is some difference. The American model has it farther to the east, the European farther to the west. And if you've been watching over the past few days, these models have been flip-flopping a little bit. Last night, if you were watching Tim on Hurricane Hub Live, it had that center of the storm on the European closer to the coastline. It has now shifted east. A couple of days ago, the American was here east of Bermuda, and it has shifted towards the west. So we're starting to see them come together a little bit more. Is this a one-off, or is this a trend that we are seeing? And that's what we're going to have to watch here over the coming days. So again, the American here in yellow and the European. Now this is the main run, what we call the deterministic run of both of these models, and then it carries it off towards the northwest. But we can also run what we call ensemble models. So this is where we take those two models that you just saw and we tweak the initial conditions just a little bit. Let's say it's a little bit farther to the east, or a little bit farther to the west, or a little bit farther to the north or south, or a little bit stronger, and we run that model again. And we run it 20, 30 times, and that's what this is. These are the ensemble plots here. So again, the American in yellow, the European in red, and we'll zoom in a little bit closer. You can see here, again, we've got that cone of uncertainty that's there. And that cone, kind of shows where we think, that's the forecast from the National Hurricane Center. But notice there are a few computer models that bring the storm, closer to the coastline on the American, some of those runs. We'll run it through one more time. And you can see how a couple of those computer models here, a little bit closer to the coast. The majority out here, closer and offshore. So we've got some fair amount of confidence that the storm is going to move off the coastline. But there are a couple of those models in there, again, that bring it closer to the coast. And this is a little bit different. This is now the American saying that. Earlier, it was the European. You can see there's one little European model that brings it, one ensemble member that brings it closer to the U.S. coastline, actually makes landfall here across Carolina. But again, the vast majority of the ensembles are here towards the east. So again, the question will be, as we get into the middle of next week, and we'll know more certainly over the weekend and early next week when and where that turn is expected, have a little more confidence in the forecast. Right now, more than likely the storm is going to pass offshore, but as long as there's some of these ensemble models that's saying that it could be closer to the coastline, we have to watch it very closely. So that's the concern going into next week. Certainly any of these, whether it's closer to the coast or even farther offshore, it is going to give us some rough surf. It is going to give us some big swells and likely some increase in the rip current threat as we go through the middle and the end of next week. So still a lot of uncertainty as far as the path of Erin, but that's the latest information coming in here as of 2 p.m. on Thursday, August 14th. Of course, we'll have continuous updates here on air and online and on 13 News Now Plus with the latest on Erin. Certainly as we go into the weekend and early next week when we know the impacts a little bit more, we'll have a better idea of what you can expect here across southeastern Virginia, North Carolina, and really across the southeast coastline. For now, meteorologist Evan Stewart here. That's the latest on Erin, 2 p.m. Thursday, August 14th.